all analysts here, so, except for Foxborough BOS, which is 200%.
The 200% rate. So we're currently a lot less than that. The last time the rates were adjusted was in January of '07. And if it would be the board's pleasure, I'd recommend that change.
Can you explain a little bit about the reasoning, like you talked to me about?
Yeah, the rate change, if you go over to the next page. This page.
Yep.
This is a copy of our postal medical billing summary report. It goes over the activity. If you look down the first, this is a very confusing report to explain, so I'll just call your attention to the commitments on the first line. That's how much activity we did in billing for each month. The rest of it's kind of hocus pocus. It doesn't really relate to that billing. It relates to billings going way back. But that's the amount of money that we're making per month. And the billing for going to Medicare plus 100% would pretty much just put us on the low side of what everyone else is doing. It's not really even an average of what everyone else is doing. It's still on the low side at 100%. I think it's just important to keep up with the rates of everyone else so that we're not the low man on the totem pole.
And is this going to cost the taxpayers more out of their pocket? This is just for medical.
No, it doesn't affect the taxpayers at all. The breakdown, if you want to look at the bigger picture of the taxpayers, it really doesn't affect them until you get to the very broad strokes. The Medicare rates are set, and if you look on the third column, I think it is, that, go back to the Medicare rates, even though we bill a rate, whatever we bill them, they only pay what they're going to pay. So if we bill them at $475 as we do now, they pay $368.13 for Medicare. Medicare represents about 40% of our business. And those people don't pay any more if we adjust the rates up or down.
So who pays the difference?
It doesn't get paid.
It doesn't get paid.
It's written off.
It's written off.
Any questions?
Right, so about 60% of the people have private insurance? You
could argue that almost 100% will have, or 100%, near 100% will have health insurance of one type or another. Medicare representing 40%, Medicaid representing 18%, and 5% on the self-pay. The rest are private pay insurers. So this will really only affect the private pay insurers, the people that pay the bill, as opposed to you and I paying the Medicare bill. It may represent a small increase in our revenues.
So a regular insurance company would pay more if the rates were higher?
Medicare pays far lower than anyone else.
Okay.
Whether it be private pay or private carrier.
Yeah.
Right, but you didn't answer his question.
So
If you raise the rates, are they going to pay more, a bigger percentage of it?
No. They're going to pay whatever they pay and they don't care.
the private companies?
The private pay...
Like Blue Cross Blue Shield? Or?
Well, Blue Cross Blue Shield will sometimes pay the full amount. They'll sometimes pay less amount.
Yeah.
The thing Blue Cross is doing these days is trying to get to the point where they send the money to the patient so that there's another layer between the patient and us. They do that in Connecticut. They're trying to do it up here. There's a big push from the Fire Chiefs Association, especially, to not do that, to allow it to be billed out to the company and the company pay the bill. We have a better rate of return doing that than we'll have if we give it to the patient and we both. So this is pretty much an exercise in housekeeping for the most part. It keeps us current with everyone else. It will represent a positive improvement in the revenue stream, but to be able to clearly define it, I can't right now.
Can you order a magnitude? You think you'd increase revenue by 5%, 10%?
Probably closer to 20, 25.
20, and not 50? 2025?
Probably 2025. When you'll really notice the rate increases when we go to ALS. That's when you start to notice probably back to 100%. Yes.
I got a question, it won't affect me, because I'm on Medicare, right? If you get private insurance, like you said, they send you a check. Say for instance, you bill them $700-some.
Just Blue Cross is doing that. The private insurance in general is not doing that.
Okay, I'm just saying, if they say, they send you a check for only $300, then you're gonna make up the other 270.
Well, it won't affect you at all on Medicare. 'cause
No, I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about people in general that have an insurance.
Normally it won't. The only time you would end up with a pay on that would be on the copay. If you have a copay plan with your insurance company,
Yeah.
sometimes you would be expected to pay the copay $25, $50, whatever it is.
All right, that's what I'm looking
Yeah.
at.
But the private carriers are pretty decent about paying either the full bill or whatever they're gonna pay.
Yeah,
Insurance billing is different than all other types of billing. If I do a job for you and you charge, and I charge you $200,
Yeah.
and you say, I'm gonna give you 50.
yeah.
In this business, I have to say, oh, okay. You know, in your business, you might say something different.
Yeah.
I got a few words.
Yeah.
Yes, Bob?
I was watching a meeting not too long ago where you guys forgave a bunch of outstanding bills that people had before just this. So when you say, well, people pay their co-pay, didn't you actually go after people for the amount that wasn't covered by the insurance company?
Specifically in regards to that meeting that you were describing, was that the selectmen's meeting?
Yes.
Okay. That meeting dealt with some housekeeping that dated back to '06. Let's say we bill a $500 bill for an ambulance ride, and the people, or the insurance company or whoever, pays $400. Because if it's Medicare, it's $363. If it's a private pay, they may pay $450. Whatever it is, it's rarely what you bill. Unless
Understandable.
car accidents actually can be more profitable, because if you get the bill in fast, they'll pay it, and there's a tete-a-tete going on between lawyers and insurance companies. It's kind of messy, but to get back to the point, $500 of the bill is billed.
Yeah.
If we collect $400 from you, your insurance company, or whoever, then the other $100 gets carried forward as an adjustment, or we don't go after that $100 anyway. So over time, that accumulates. And what happened here, we wrote off $100,000 of those accumulated entities
Well, I
that
mean,
they don't really, they don't
But I mean,
translate into dollars and
the
cents.
discussion at the time was, were we gonna bill these people or not? They voted not to.
They voted not to, correct.
So, under your, but they could have.
And going forward, because those were so old, going forward, if people get a bill and they can't pay it, technically they're supposed to write us a hardship
Well, I'm
letter.
saying, when he says, well, your co-pay is gonna cover it, well, that's not true. Any extra that the insurance decides not to pay, if I take an ambulance ride, you're gonna bill me, right?
Probably not,
Probably.
probably not.
Diane?
That doesn't,
I know,
that doesn't sound very.
ambulance billing doesn't make sense to too many people. It's different than all other billing.
The insurance company decides ahead of time generally how much they're gonna pay.
For an area, given area. no doubt
Right, you know,
about
like he's saying the bill is $500, the insurance company pays $300,
it. Yeah.
then he's expected to write off $100 unless you pay part of your copay, and then it's that balance between those two.
Right.
It's just common practice to write it off.
Yes, Sue?
I think I remember that meeting, and I think the chief was talking about people who don't have insurance and who were then going to submit a letter explaining their situation of not
Right.
having insurance and the hardship.
Right.
And then he would present it in executive session. He wasn't talking about people who he was chasing for the $25 that the insurance company didn't pay. He was talking about the people who didn't have any, correct? Any insurance at all, and if they came before the board with a hardship explaining that.
The policy is that if you can't, don't want to, or are not going to pay the bill, if you send a letter of hardship to the billing company will send that information to me, and I'll present it to the board for their decision in executive session on whether they want to forgive any part or all of it. As far as the 6 months, that was because at 180 days, that's roughly 6 billing cycles. And that's about what Coastal bills at, 6 billing cycles. So the first one goes out, it's a nice letter, the second one goes out and they say, well, you know, if you send a hardship letter in, you may be able to get some of that reduced. And Coastal does inform the client of that, but not at the first billing, usually 2 or 3 billings in. And if they say, I don't have the money, I'm not gonna pay it, Coastal will say to them, why don't you send a hardship letter into the select board, and then they can go to executive session, and if they say, I don't have any money, what am I gonna do? Then they have their option to forgive it at their discretion. Does that answer your question?
So, Chief, I mean, we could put down a proposed rate of $1,000 if you wanted to.
That's exactly right.
And you're just gonna write them off anyways.
You're exactly right. The question is, are we gonna get paid from something? And the answer to that is yes, but to what percentage answers Judge question? 25%, 5%, is 50%? You can just guess at that, but you can't really determine that up front. But the fact that you're billing it at a higher rate for those that do pay does generate more revenue for the service in the town.
Any other discussion?
Is there anything here that we're voting on right now?
Well, I think he wants us to,
Just permission to adjust the rates up to the proposed
yeah,
rates.
both to adjust the rate
The rates for billing,
from 475.
ambulance billing,
Yeah.
not for what you're paying employees.
No, this is just for ambulance billing. This is what we, this is what they charge now, and this is what he wants to charge.
From current to proposed. Right.
And it's just for the basic life support, because we don't have ALS.
Correct.
Yeah, well,
Well, I
that's
would
what,
recommend you do.
see, that's what was confusing me, because he's got ALS in there
I would
too.
recommend that you vote on all of them because it could affect how we bill and they would.
Okay.
Depending on if it's billed through our rates or whether it's their rates.
Good point. Okay. So if anyone is so inclined, I would take a motion to let the chief go to the 3 proposed rates on this first piece of paper, effective, when you want to,
So they let them know.
like July 1?
I'd say coming next week.
June, oh, okay, that early. So effective April 15th, April 16th?
Oh, that sounds like a good date.
Yeah, don't use that date.
April 15th?
Yes, Pat?
Can we propose ALS rates even though we're not ALS?
Yeah, because we
Yes.
have to pay Woods.
Because we pay Woods.
Right.
Mutual aid agreements in our contracts.
But in the-
So, do these exceed the mutual aid agreement that we have now?
Right.
Yes, they'll generate more revenue than we get now.
But
Do they exceed what we,
the agreement we have?
the
with
agreement that
mutual
we
aid?
have with them now?
I don't believe so. We work on a percentage agreement. 50% of anything that we bill, minus the cost of billing, goes to.
So then you don't pay them
We
at
pay
a
them
specific ALS rate?
out of our coffers. We pay the ambulance company that does the ALS portion as a service to the town. Because we don't have our own ALS at the time. I would much rather pay us than pay it to an outside vendor.
Well, I know, but the question is, why would we want to raise the rate for ALS? If we don't have ALS yet, do we want to pay somebody else more than what we're paying them now?
We still get half.
Why not?
Yeah. Okay.
We'll make
if-
more
Half of a
money.
higher amount of money.
Right.
Boy, it's still a lot more.
The insurance company, if the insurance company pays 1,000 and we bill it out at 500, well, we'll subtract the billing rate out of what we're paying the ALS provider, but then we'd get 500 roughly. So if it goes to 1,200, we may get 600. And the insurance still picks up the balance, it's whatever we work out that.
Chief, what's the difference between ALS 1 and 2 rates? What, its intensity?
We'll never use ALS 2 here. Pretty much it's multiple medications and different things that we'll probably never use. So the majority of it will be ALS 1 and then the subcategory would be ALS 1. We'll use the mileage rate on every one and the other ones, oxygen and IV administration, are normally blended into the rates as they are for ALS or BLS.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, then I move to allow the chief to move to the proposed ambulance rates as listed here. Do I need to read them all?
Nope.
Medicare plus 100%.
Medicare plus 100%, beginning April 15th?
15th?
April 15th. Then we'll all know it.
I will second that motion.
Any other discussion? Seeing none. Pat?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Virginia?
Yes.
Is that it?
That's it. Thank very
Did you,
much.
well, I got you here. Just so you can make something clear for us. I already told you about the two pieces of equipment. The other article that you had on here about the two full-time equivalent firefighter EMTs, you want to explain that?
Yes, as you know, for the past several years, the fire department has brought forth articles for fire trucks and
I'm just giving you the plug, the paper.
I have a concern, as I mentioned in my last meeting from the chief's office, on the written form, that we're going to be failing to meet all of our calls because of the volunteer call staffing. My concern is that the only way to guarantee that we make every call, because it is someone, is calling for medical reasons, the only way we can guarantee that is to have the staffing. Tom had proposed 4 full-timers. I'm proposing 2 full-timers, and that's roughly 48 hours a week. I think I used around 95,000. The thought was that if we use one of them, or if we use both of them, it wouldn't really matter. If we use one of them to be, it's perfect. It wouldn't probably represent the full amount, but if we figure in a vacationing or any benefit packages, we could adjust from there in the second person. I've actually proposed 3 different versions. The first version is to use the staffing that we have now that we know will not cover enough calls. And bear in mind that the more calls we do, the more billing we get. So it's not just that we're not in the station to help the residents, it's that we're not in the station and we're not making money when we can't get the second EMT. You're paying me to be in the station every day, and as a medic, you're using me as an EMT, and that's fine. I have no problem going on any ambulance call, but to have the second EMT there guaranteed, I know that coming up April, the end of April, I'm going to lose Dennis Hamill. I've already lost Charlene getting caught. I'm going to be losing both Doug Wheeler and Gary.
Why are we
Angela,
losing all these people?
because they're going back to work full-time. Dennis is going to be driving the truck. Gary and Doug work for the State Department of Forestry Services. Charlene's going in the military. She'll be in Afghanistan for a year. So that's my daytime staff. And without daytime staff, I need 2 EMTs to run the calls. So my thought was put in for 2, and whatever portion of the 2 we use, you'll have a defined high-end limit of 95,000, and the low end is variable. The other proposal that I suggested as a means of stopgap or trying to get to that point was for full-time equivalents on an on-call basis. And that was a $50 per 12-hour shift. It's not hours, you can't use hours with stipends, but for a period of time, 2 stipends a day, roughly, putting 2 EMTs on in that version, that pays $50 or $100 a day for 2. Roughly $36,500 versus the $95,000. I don't guarantee that that will cover all the calls, because we may not be able to fill it if we don't have the people now. Because the people are dedicated that we have, and they will come out if they're here. So if they're not here, then it's not going to make a difference if you pay $50 for the day or not. The only way to guarantee it is full-timers, which is why the article's on there to propose that. It's the only version of it that is different than what Tom proposed before me, was that it's 2 instead of 4. At 8,000 residents, 1,000 calls a year, you can figure that we're averaging over 3 calls a day. At an average of 2 hours per call, that's 6 hours per day that we're doing now with volunteers, call staff. And it's just not reasonable to expect that they can keep up that level. Because some days you'll have no calls, and other days you'll have 6 calls. That's the call volume that we're doing. We're doing 1,000 calls a day with 8,000 residents. And those are real people's emergencies. They're down line 1-1, they're expecting us. My personal feeling is that the way to do it would be to put the full-timers in. 2 of them I don't think is enough. I think 4 is the actual amount. But 2 was in an effort to try to save some money, because I know the town's broke. If the town decided that they wanted to try and meet me halfway, then my thought was put the article forward with the proposed 2 call men, and then that's half the money, 36 versus 95. if you go and leave it the way it is right now and don't do anything, I can guarantee that we're not gonna hit every call, because we don't have enough staff. So that's the rationale behind it.
Yes.
Could you just clarify, because you had said 1,000 calls a day?
Just,
You did.
well, that's busy.
That's what he said.
8,000 residents, 1,000 calls a year, about
Oh,
700 medical and 300 fire.
And one full-timer?
One full-time.
He's the only
That's me.
full-timer.
And the
Doing
rest of
inspections.
volunteers?
You what?
And the
Yeah,
rest of
call
all-
volunteers. They get paid when the call goes out. They get a 2-hour minimum.
But they
pay.
also have jobs.
They have jobs and do other things.
So you may or may not get somebody right away?
You're likely to not get them once we know that the ones that are here aren't going to be here, which we know is coming up in April. The thought of it was that if we give them a half-time proposal, $36,500, that provides a $50 incentive for being around for 12 hours. They can be at their house raking their leaves, and they'll get $50 just to be in town, just to come if there's a call. But they guarantee on a calendar that for that $50 they're coming. That's cheap, it's like $4.17 an hour, just to be available, guaranteed available. That's the key, is the guarantee.
So those people would not be employees, they would be
Stipended.
stipended.
Right. Stipended personnel don't get benefits.
Okay.
So that's, do you have any questions?
Nope.
Thank you.
All right. We're falling behind, so we've got to catch up. John Butts.
That'll take a while to catch up.
Yeah.
Good evening, guys, how are you? Matter at hand that we are talking about is the proposed 22-bed drug rehab psychiatric facility on Baldwin Road. We need the board to know what we hope to get out of this meeting tonight. We would like to see the board meet with the officials from the hospital and with the concerned people down on Baldwin Road, on Baldwinville Road and Sunrise Drive. And I think that they should all have a voice in the facility that they're trying to put in there, I would think. I've actually been to a couple of the master planning meetings that you've had at the school, and we actually put the town together. I have never seen them put a 22-bed facility in the center of an entire neighborhood. Okay?
Can I just interrupt you for
yeah.
a second? We've been through this with you guys.
Yeah.
And they haven't had another hearing since then because the last two have been postponed.
Okay.
So until they have another meeting, there's really nothing new for us to discuss. We know what your concerns are.
Okay.
I tried to go to the last meeting when they had to postpone it because it was, you were here, the room was too full.
Yeah.
And then the last one, they had the snowstorm,
Yep.
so they couldn't hold the
Right.
meeting. I don't know, when is it rescheduled for now? Tomorrow night?
6:30 at the Gila.
Okay. Unfortunately, I have two other meetings at that time.
One other meeting.
So I cannot be there tomorrow night.
I think the thing that we're trying to achieve, Chris, is trying to get the select board on board to have a meeting or try to set up something with the hospital, with the citizens of Templeton, and to be able to voice our concerns, because we couldn't really voice them at the planning board, but Kirk kind of gave us a lot of space down there, and we did voice some of our concerns, but there's only so much that we could have actually discussed at the planning board. I thought the planning board did a pretty good job of the whole thing. Some of us didn't like Kirk afterwards, but that's okay. But we do have...
Like I tell everybody else I'm out to make friends,
Yeah,
like the ones I got now.
There you go. But we do have a lot of concerns, and we're even concerned if that's really a viable space to even actually put a facility such as they actually want to put there, because it really brings down the character of the neighborhood. It's not that we're actually opposed to such actual places. They're probably pretty, they're really needed in today's society, but you gotta pick your place that you're gonna put them in. I think the zoning rules in Templeton are very non-discriminatory against places that actually want to put in facilities at. Okay? But I think they've gone too far by actually trying to protect themselves under the Dover.
Yep, yep. And you brought all that to us. And
So, yeah, so I think that's the thing that we're trying to get tonight, is to get the planning board for the Selectmen, McLean, and Edison's all together to try to discuss it and try to work, something out, you know? So I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, what is it? Probably 2 or 3 meetings ago when you had all your folks in here. And I've done a lot more research since you guys were here, and I am very concerned, as you are. 22 people is just too many for that area.
Absolutely it is.
They have a lot of larger areas in other towns, and they only have 10 or 12 people.
That is correct.
So I am concerned. I was hoping to have a letter ready for the board to vote tonight, and I didn't get it typed up to send to Senator Brewer and Representative Andrews. And I did not get it typed up. I will try to have it for our next meeting to ask them to look into this for us.
Okay.
Because you're right, it's just too big of a group for that small area.
It's a small area, and I know that Templeton has, I believe, the hospitals, I think currently probably 5 acres for.
5 acres for
hospitals, and 3 acres for a, I don't even know.
Yeah, and I've kind of driven down there and looked around, and I see better after talking to you folks what the concerns were of some of the abutters and stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so.
So do you think that will probably go out tomorrow, or?
No, I have to have the board vote it first. I have
Okay.
to get it typed up and have them read it.
All right.
So it probably won't go, our next meeting's not for 2 weeks unless we meet in the meantime for something.
Okay, I don't know if Dana has any questions at all on what Chris was saying?
We've been in contact as well. with
Well,
the-
you had told me
maybe
actually
four people
that
behind us.
Senator Brewer wanted something from the select
Yeah.
board. That's why I want to get this written and let them approve it if they so choose, and then we can send it out as a board.
We've also been in contact with Denise Sanders. I had sent her an email, she had sent me her phone number, Dana has called her. She has called, she hasn't gotten back to us, and I have sent her another email just this past weekend regarding,
Okay.
so we haven't made physical contact, but she is fully aware of the situation.
Okay.
And our other concerns were just of the usage of Dover Amendment and
Yeah.
their inability to justify it.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we sign the letter when it's ready.
Okay.
Okay.
Second.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Just, because I'm just, nothing to do with me being on planning board.
Yeah.
What's the content of the letter?
It's going to basically ask both Senator Brewer and Denise Andrews to look at this proposal and see if there's anything they can do to help us maybe get McLean to cut down the number or better adhere to the concerns we have as residents of the town.
They're not through planning yet, and I honestly don't believe they will tomorrow night when I was told from the peer review engineer. More they're doing than I'm doing. We hired a peer review to look out for the town of Templeton.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, because I have like
they're
water
heads on
at
it a
6
little bit,
o'clock
so-
tomorrow, so.
See, part of the problem was too that the Dover Amendment was put there to keep towns from discriminating against schools and,
Educational
facilities.
Educational
And
facilities.
now it's kind of a reverse discrimination, because Templeton has pretty good zoning bylaws for stuff like that, but they're coming in and saying, well, because this is a cheap piece of property and they're gonna make $15 million off per year, I mean, they're actually not really using the Dover Amendment in the proper way that it was, I mean, the actual essence of the Dover or is to prevent towns from discriminating
Right.
against them. It's kind of a reverse discrimination.
If you would like to, when we get the final copy of the letter, I can make sure Mr. Riddick gets you a copy of it, so you guys can see it.
Okay. And I have a question before you finish, Mr. Butts. We do have, it's not actually a petition, I guess it's just a request for a meeting?
Yes.
Right,
It's not a citizen's petition because it's not going on the meeting warrant. This is
Right.
basically just a request to meet with the board and McLean in a public session.
That is
right?
correct.
Is that right? Okay.
that's correct.
Well, the board will, as they say, take this under advisement, and maybe we can schedule something. We certainly have received it, noted for the record, it's stamped in today's date, so we'll see if we can do something to set up such a
You
session.
know, because there's plenty of space in Templeton for facilities such as this. I mean, it's really in the wrong geographic position. I mean, you don't put something, a large facility in a small piece of property in such a pretty tightly packed neighborhood, you know. It's not part of Templeton's master plan, because if it is, then
Especially so close to the elementary school.
the school.
I'm concerned.
So he'll see if he can get something set up. I don't know how receptive McLean's will be, but he can try.
Well, yeah, I'm curious about the educational program if it's 10 days long.
Yeah, I'd like
What kind of
to,
miracles they're working on?
yeah, I'd like to see
Okay.
their,
We know, we have a motion made, I don't think we voted on it yet, so we have to stick to the motion of the letter.
certainly.
And then you can ask whatever you want to ask. So if there's no other discussion on the letter itself, then we'll take a vote on, I'll get the letter written, get it to Jeff. He'll peruse it and then let you guys see it, and then you can sign it. So, Pat?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Virginia?
Yes.
Okay, now you had a question.
I'm just listening to the fire chief, and the police chief,
Yep.
and just knowing that there's all of these residents, and there's 1,000 calls a year, and there's one full-timer, how are they gonna be able to support this organization that may come here with 22 residents that are dual diagnosed?
Yeah.
And
Who knows?
how, you can't. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
Well, we're just gonna increase the ambulance.
Those are not calls you need ALS for, those are calls you need
Anything else?
straight jackets for.
The educational, when I had called about the educational clause and whatnot, there's no curriculum.
There is no curriculum.
I had asked, there's no,
Julie, this might
no
be-
curriculum.
Okay, no, this is what I had asked
I
them
had
to
asked
look
about
at.
the curriculum was an issue when I had called and I had asked them what their program was, if they had a handbook, if they had some kind of curriculum written out. There is no curriculum to support the education.
So, yeah, how can you
It
call
has
yourself
not been
a majority of
And it's
a
supposed to be the
educational
primary
facility
use
without a
for
curriculum?
educational,
Bob?
and it has not been.
Under Dover.
Backing up to
Yeah.
the town warrant,
Yeah.
will you be voting on the whole warrant at your next regular meeting?
Yeah,
or
they'll be signing it, so,
on
Yeah.
that-
Review it and sign
The
it.
next regular meeting.
yeah, which is just in time then to post the next day.
Talk about under the wire.
Every time being, yeah. So they better get it done the next meeting.
Okay, we have a few things under old business here. And we're gonna be quick, right?
Yeah.
It's up to you. Update on moving town offices. Is that you, Jeff?
Yes, that is to raise the question, we have addressed it briefly before, that we will ask the town to take a vote. I have to do a request for proposals for leased office space, because this lease has expired and we have to do a new lease. So, I wanted to bring your attention to the fact that we'll go out for a request for proposals. I'm in, I should say, discussion, not negotiation with the landlord. He thought it was going to be a lease negotiation. I explained to him, no, we're going out to bid. So you're welcome to make a bid. This is the kind of space we're looking for. I don't know if anyone else will bid or not, but certainly it's changed, it's shifted his position at the table a little bit. The real reason to put this on, though, is to have the board discuss and decide whether you wish to begin the process of moving any boards or committees in here into the existing space we have, which could in fact be the Community Opportunities Group Economic Development Office, because it is one person, 1 day a week, and there's a clerk who works a couple of hours, I think Monday afternoon and Wednesday afternoon. that's certainly an opportunity to begin the process of vacating 4 Elm Street. The other possibility is to, and I'd accept the direction, if you wanted to move the Conservation Commission in here, same reason. They have a clerk who works 5 hours a week. Their office hours literally are Monday morning, period. They have their meetings in the planning board office. They meet in this room. It would help us start the process of vacating 4 Elm Street. The reason for that is 4 Elm Street has black mold. It has to be remediated. It is a public safety issue, and it's not our property. It's owned by the federal government. I've inspected the deed. I'm about to start the discussion with the federal government about their taking care and custody of that piece of real estate. So we are going to have to clear the premises at some point. This is just an effort to get the ball rolling a little bit. Carol Harris and the clerk's office is still there. There's no intention to move her at this time. That's a much bigger issue.
I would move that we begin immediately moving the other 2 people that we can move. We have 2 empty desks in the planning board office, and since they're only a few hours a week each, I don't see it shouldn't be a problem with that.
Sharing the space?
Sharing that space.
I know, I spoke to Carl about it months ago. So.
All right.
You would have to transfer the phone lines.
Right.
The phone lines is the biggest
But
issue. The phone lines have to get
if we
transferred.
start now doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sooner out of 4 Elm, the better off we are. That building should be condemned. In my opinion, I don't believe it's safe.
That is.
The fire chief, I can drag him in a little bit. He's been inspecting the back of the property. There's some serious reservations about the back of the property.
Absolutely.
It has to be taken down. Building inspector going to write you a letter on this?
I actually have been in discussion with the building inspector relative to that building. The section from the back of the bottom of the stairs, the whole garage section in the back, in my opinion, is unsafe. I talked with the building inspector about it, and he said that there was a selectman move towards that. The select board a past select board had made a move towards not using that building anymore. I'm not sure how many years ago, 4 years ago perhaps, as a guess. And they had done the original asbestos abatement study, and they found that the asbestos that's in the building is really only in the glazing of the outer windows and negligible otherwise. At that time, they cleared most everything out of the back garage, with the exception of there's a couple ladders back there that the fire department owns. They had a whole bunch of bikes in there in total. They took all the bikes out. They started a planned demolition of the back to the point of, I believe, even going out to bid part of that. I think they got a bid in from Frank Machete to tear part of it down. At that point, everything stopped with no money, and nothing happened after that. My interest was brought about because Kate had mentioned the fire alarm system was down. So in looking at the fire alarm system, I looked at the rest of the building while I was there. And that was my first time seeing the back offices with the stairway down to the garage. And that's when I noticed there was some black mold, or what I assumed to be, but I'm no expert on black mold. But I could see out to the daylight outside through the ceiling of that stairway, which is usually a pretty good indicator that moisture's getting in.
I have some questions about some of that, but we have a motion on the floor right now.
Right. Did it get seconded? Did you officially second it, or did you just?
I made the motion.
I know you made the motion. Julie said the sooner we can get people out of there, the better, but I don't know if that was a second.
But I will second it.
Thank you.
There we go.
And the motion was to get the people that we can get out of there,
Yeah.
basically.
The Economic Development Office and Conservation.
Yeah, okay. Any other discussion on that motion?
The only other thing, we had a general discussion last Thursday, and I was surprised to see it on the thing. And I did sum it up so that each of the selectmen can see what some of the issues are. And I took the liberty, because originally the advisory board had come to talk about basically the finances of it. And those are items that you've heard about, as well as what the office is to move and when the time frame. So we have somewhat of a plan framed in,
Yeah.
taking enough discussing, and that's kind of where I'm.
All right, so the motion is to get those two offices out of 4 Elm Street. Pat?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Virginia?
Yes.
So you can go
Start
ahead.
the process.
And I would say, once we get
The new part of this
the
building.
lease and the new, yes,
I have a question. I know Mike Big Bag, who's at, works for us now.
yeah.
I don't think he comes with a lot of baggage, but I'm not sure about the conservation, how much stuff they have with them.
A lot of paper.
I know, but they gotta be, because we don't have any like extra storage room in that office over there. We have room for personnel and whatnot, but would they be bringing their extra stuff and packing it down the hall, or would they be leaving it on the premises until we totally vacate the building?
We'll probably move it over here and put it out back and create a
Or
conservation.
I'd encourage a
they have a
conservation
lot of
to maybe
maps.
stuff that just doesn't pertain. I mean, you're talking A&R,
Just to move the stuff that's
just
necessary.
just wetland protection act, stuff that's 5 years, 10 years, 50, I'd encourage them to go through their files and maybe head most of it to a dumpster versus bringing it here. Because the permits are only good for a couple of years and they're no good anyway. So they're either done, they want to want the certificate of compliance, it's already done. I don't know how long they have to hold those records, but just moving around town, and you're talking tonnage of paperwork, is really useless space.
I want to get back to what the chief was talking about. If they're going to propose that the backside of that building has to be demolished, don't we want to establish our non-connection with the building first?
Yeah.
So it doesn't cost us to
Why would it-
demolish?
But we don't own the buildings, why would it be our decision?
Right.
That's what I mean.
Well, we want to make sure because,
No, we know we don't own the building.
well, we know we didn't own the building, but there are laws in effect, and I don't know if it affects this, that say after you've had something for a certain amount of time, that you in effect do own it, especially the state pours that on people all the time.
By prescription.
Yeah, we don't need this anymore, it belongs to you now.
I don't know if that works with buildings.
So, well, they did the skating rink in Gardner, they dumped it, so.
Well, that's exactly the theory I was going to use with the federal government, which is, we don't own this anymore, it's now yours.
Here's the keys.
Here's the keys and walk away from it,
We
and
can't
it's
pass
their
title on it,
liability.
so we can't do anything but hold
Right.
liability on
We
it
just-
forever. Why would we want the liability?
Tear it down, make some parking lots.
No, we can't, just leave it alone.
We
If they're
can't,
happy,
just leave it alone, let them do whatever they're
Unless they
gonna do
want to
with
give us
it.
a clear deed for it,
Yeah.
Right.
then I'd say, put it
Exactly.
back down and sell a little like we're working on it now, as far as, once
But
Darryl
do we
goes down,
really
it's worth
want,
absolutely
we don't
nothing.
really want a clear deed, we don't want the building.
Want it.
Oh, I'd take it.
I mean, well,
You could
No, I'm
negotiate
saying
with
from
the
a
state
town-
if you want.
From a town standpoint, if we demolish the entire structure, it's worth absolutely nothing, it's in the river's front, it's just, there's nothing there. Where if you just made the building safe and vacated it, and it became surplus property, we could sell it to the open market. I'm sure somebody would be interested, just a small office, or, what have you, it's still a piece of
I don't-
property, real estate.
I would rather not see us turn into a buy and sell real estate.
All right,
I'm not
so
saying buy it, I'm saying if we can prove that we own it, we can sell it.
let's move on. So I guess after we get the lease redone, we would want to get the Carol's office out of there as soon as we can and figure out what to do with that stupid safe.
if we're fortunate, then maybe June, July, we have to do some renovation here to provide storage,
Yeah.
proper storage for her.
Yeah.
That very much is the issue, and I've had some preliminary discussions. It has to be fireproof, humidity-controlled
Yeah.
space. That's not hard to do. It's not even that expensive, but it's, you gotta
She
do
did
it.
ask today if she could be kept in the loop about
Sure.
how this is,
Sure.
The hardest part's gonna be getting it up,
Yeah.
What?
the safe.
We don't have to move the safe.
We don't have to move the safe at all, I don't
No.
believe.
It's just a door.
We just need to
The
create-
safe is basically a metal door
Yeah.
on a concrete
Okay.
block wall.
So you just create a new
We
one.
just need to
Yeah.
recreate a
Yeah.
safe structure, whether it be a block addition, this is a block building, if we were here.
Yeah,
With a steel door, with a fire door.
Okay.
It doesn't need to be combinations.
Bud's the one that moved that door to start with.
Yeah.
is that all on,
That's
on bill, or moving?
Moving, yeah.
Okay, update on union negotiation.
Okay, first of all, clerical employees have organized, I am in discussion. We will very shortly schedule a negotiating session with the mass laborers for
People,
clerical,
please.
for clerical only. The reason this is on the agenda tonight is to ask the board for guidance as regards department heads. There are department heads who had worked with...
People, if you want to talk, please go in the hall.
Who had worked with mass laborers back in the fall, signed cards, and have asked to be organized. As department heads, they are not subject to collective bargaining. So I've been going back and forth with the laborers local in Hopkinton and have received from them a position regarding our department heads according to their best information. And in other municipalities, department heads sometimes, not all, not universally, but some department heads do organize and are collectively bargained. Their point. If a department head has the authority to hire or fire employees, then they cannot bargain. If they have the authority to answer grievances at the second step or above, then they cannot unionize. If they have the option of sitting at the negotiating table with union members, then obviously they can't sit on both sides of the table, so that's obvious. And then if they have the authority to create and implement policy. Well, in our case, our department heads do largely have authority, especially in elected boards and committees, to create and implement policy. They don't have the authority to hire or fire or to negotiate or to settle grievances, but they do have the authority to initiate policy for the town. So it puts us in the gray area as to whether legally they can organize or not. That's point number one, we're in the gray area. Point number two, the personnel board made a decision, Virginia, help me out, how many months ago did we decide? 3 months ago?
3 months ago. Yeah.
To recognize that all department heads are not hourly employees, but are in fact salaried employees. We haven't formally promulgated that in any sense yet because we're still working on the policy and what it really means. But in fact, if you are a department head and supervise at least one other person, then you're not working at an hourly rate, you're working at an annual salary. And we don't care whether you work more hours, less hours, subject to Fair Labor Standards Act, you get paid a salary. If we go down that road as a town, and if department heads are considered salaried employees, then I can respond very clearly to the union, thank you, but no thanks. We're not going to negotiate with you as representing department heads because they cannot organize, because they're not hourly employees, and they make policy. Just looking for the reason to do that brief is to get some guidance from the board if that makes sense, and that's the way we want to go.
How many people are you talking?
It's a handful. Board of Health, assessors, collector, treasurer, accountant. People that are exempt are the police chief, the fire chief, and yours truly, because we have contracts, so those speak clearly under contract law. The head of highway, I think that's it. Who have I missed?
Council on Aging.
Cemetery, Council on Aging. 8 people. I probably missed one, there might be 9. It's just the department heads, not school, and not anybody who's currently organized. 8 or 9 individuals.
Anybody have any thoughts?
Well, it said there's 2 ways we can go about it, and my idea is that we should not recognize them as negotiating. They're salaried. They're part of management. It's the way union is established. There's management and there's everyone else.
Anybody have any comments?
Is Sue just in the hall? Or is she?
Yeah, I don't know what she's doing.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I agree with Virginia that they are management, and I believe once we deal with the personnel issues, if it's successful at town meeting, then we can actually look at dealing with department heads in a different way.
As a class of
possibly
employees.
as a class of employees, or even with contracts.
Or with contracts.
And then people can negotiate their contracts on their, instead of being part of the wage and compensation plan, that doesn't work.
She just came in.
Yeah.
You
I'm
missed it,
I
sorry.
missed it, yeah, I know.
Now you're gonna waste all that time. Go ahead.
Denied.
No,
so-
go ahead, what were you?
We were discussing if department heads should be classified as salaried employees and not be part of the negotiation for the union.
I was told that the reason we weren't allowed to go with the others, the administrative assistants, if you will, but there's other people thrown in there,
Yeah.
was because we were department heads and we had the right to hire and fire. I do not have the right to hire and fire. My board doesn't even have the right to hire and fire. And that's what I was told.
Well, that's what we're discussing.
Which we're all kind of wondering why we were excluded, because none of us have the right to hire and fire. I can recommend to my board, I can say to my board, yeah, like I never say this, we am screwing up. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right.
Even when I had an issue with an employee, I didn't have the authority to say, you're fired, you know? And as I said, even my board didn't. It's always had to come before you people.
What were the other things that you said, though? It wasn't just...
Authority to answer grievances, the option of sitting at the negotiating table as a bargaining representative on behalf of the town, and the authority to create and implement policy. So if you have any of those authorities, then you're not.
Not really important.
I have no authority, except to maybe assess your house. That's about it.
You don't create policy in your own department?
No, I have an elected board. I can't do anything without my board's okay.
It's the same way at the Board of Health. You know, everything, every policy goes to the elected officials. And they vote on it.
So it's just a title, really.
What's the title? Department head?
No, your authority, just
My
a
authority.
title.
Yeah, I got authority.
We'll give you an important
So
ribbon.
I think there's still a lot of gray area there. We need to.
Well, that's what needs to be cleared up. I mean,
Yeah.
That's what we're.
So I could certainly recommend that the board consider the position of saying, we'll continue to work with the union to discuss this matter further. We are not prepared to negotiate in this round at this time with our
I
department
think
heads.
that's a fair statement.
Because we clearly are going to negotiate in the next 30 days with our clerical employees. That's a given.
The department heads.
And the department heads, we aren't taking that position yet, and we're continuing to discuss it.
All right, you're gonna get a fight from me here. Why? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Why? Why did you throw us out in the beginning?
Jeff. She wants to know why they're getting thrown out.
Because you're a supervisor. You supervise another employee. You're not taking direction, you're giving direction. It's very simple. That's the rule. If you are giving direction to another employee, you are management. If you are taking direction from someone, you are not management. So that's Occam's
I
razor.
take direction from my board.
Right, but on a day-to-day basis, you oversee the assessor's office.
You give direction to others in the office.
So it is a gray area.
Yeah.
And that's what we're
It
saying.
It's my
it's a
board,
gray
yeah.
area.
Well, it's my board.
Hold on. Go ahead.
She does take direction from the Board of Assessors.
Right.
Yes.
But she also
She
gives
doesn't
to,
give direction.
She also
she doesn't
gives
give direction to
To
Luann?
Luann.
I don't have to.
Well,
Well, let's be on that one.
On a
Did you-
day-to-day basis,
Julie's talking.
the only time you have authority as an assessor, as a board member, is when you're at a meeting. You can walk in there every day and tell Sue what to do, but unless your board votes and gives that direction, you don't have that authority. I don't have that authority as a selectman. I'm one selectman.
I think you're
When I'm sitting at
100%
this-
incorrect, young
When I'm
lady.
sitting at this board, well, I would like to finish what I'm saying because I let you finish what
Well,
you're saying.
please make sense.
Okay, without derogatory comments being made. Thank you. Okay, I don't have the authority to go to the highway department, to go to the sewer department, to go to any department under the direction of the Board of Selectmen as one person and start giving orders. The direction comes from the board. As a board, you need a quorum of the board to set policy and procedures and give direction. And I am making sense.
Bob?
In all the school, you have department heads that are teachers. That I guess you could say
That's not
make
kind
policy,
of-
but they're still part of the union. So I think you're at a stretch saying just because they make,
We're in a gray area, like you
We-
said, and we
well, I mean,
want
how does the school do it?
we want to clear that up before.
As far as union laws go?
They just don't have kids, that's all they
Hold
are.
on. Yes.
Chris, I think if you named her a foreman, instead of whatever you call her now, I think you're in the same boat as we are at highway. When the foreman comes in the day, we're gonna do this, that, and the other thing. He's not a superintendent, but he's given the orders.
Right.
And you can get
That's the same
clothing
thing
allowance.
she's doing.
But is your foreman part of the union?
Yes,
He is, right?
Probably shouldn't be.
Yes. No fighting.
I'd like to address the chair, please.
Yes. No fighting.
You're too big.
Calm down, calm down.
I don't mean with me. Go ahead.
Am I being told that I cannot go into the census office and give direction to the two people working there unless I first go through the Board of Assessors at a meeting?
That's correct.
That's
Is
what
this
she's
what I'm
saying.
being told?
That's the way it operates.
Huh?
Yes.
Well,
The chairman can.
so let's turn that around to the Board of Selectmen now.
Okay. I never go into the office.
Now,
Oh, go ahead.
the members of the Board of Selectmen are not going in to have discussions with Mr. Ritter unless you first go through the Board of Selectmen.
No.
We didn't say you can't have discussions with somebody, but you can't tell somebody what they have to do. You can't give them orders
Right.
without it being a vote of your board.
Right.
That's why we
Well,
have
it's
public
not a
meetings.
written order, you know.
Anyway, Diane?
I'm sure you have a lot of suggestions as a member of the Board of Selectmen when you discuss things with Mr. Ritter without, and have suggestions without having a vote of the Board of Selectmen.
Suggestions, that's
That's the
correct.
key word.
Direction. Well, what is your definition, the difference between a suggestion and a direction?
Well, right now, we're having a
No,
discussion.
excuse me, I will
Okay.
No.